Welcome to the Insight podcast. Joining me on the show today is Dr. Junaid Hussain. Junaid is the founder of Man Confidence, the UK's first men's-focused mental health therapy. I talked to him about the importance of emotional regulation, frustrations men may encounter when seeking mental health support and therapy, what to do if you're feeling anxious about seeing a therapist, approaches men can take to look after their mental and physical health, and much, much more. Before we start, a quick favour to ask of you. Please hit the follow button wherever you're tuning into this episode. And if you've been listening to the show for a while, I'd really appreciate it if you rated the show too. This will help more listeners discover the podcast and the insights from all of my amazing guests. Okay. Now for my conversation with Dr. Junaid Hussain. Enjoy. I thought we'd start with a question that I normally save till the end of every episode. So one of those three questions we're going to start with, and that is, what's one lesson you wish you'd have been taught when you were a child, Junaid?
Emotional regulation. That's a weird thing to be taught as a child. Do your maths homework, do your emotional regulation. It doesn't sort of work out in that way. But emotional regulation, what I mean by that is learning the ability to know how to react and when to rein in your emotions. So we get times when, for example, we might get triggered by it, the way someone speaks to us, what they say to us, how they approach us, or any particular circumstance. And there's different ways that we can manage those emotions. So sometimes we react in the moment, and then later on realize, hold on a minute, maybe I shouldn't have done it that way. But by then, some of the damage has already been done. So with emotional regulation, it's about giving either yourself a time or a moment to process whatever's happened. You don't need to reply to that WhatsApp message straight away. You don't need to reply to that that comment, whoever it is, straight away. You can give it a minute, an hour, a day, however long it needs to be. And alongside that, just internally recognizing, hold on a minute, I'm getting a bit fiery. I'm getting a bit, that something's lit up inside me. I need to take a moment. I need to take a deep breath. I think that would have saved me a lot of hassle over the years if I'd have known how to have done that earlier. So I think emotional regulation is one that we're not always taught, but assumed. We sort of learn as we grow up, and we assume, or people assume about us, that we're going to learn how to manage our interactions with other people, and that's not always natural or intuitive for everybody. I mean, I have ADHD and high functioning autism. So I struggle socially sometimes, and I think the emotional regulation part would be something that I wish I'd learned earlier. Honestly, it would have made a big difference in my life.
And the point you made about like the internal aspect of that as well, because when we say emotional regulation, maybe the first thought is, how we respond to other people, and if we, snap at them or get angry or things like that. But as you said, I feel like growing up, I would wish I'd have been taught the same thing, emotional regulation, but the internal side of it, like the inner workings of my mind, because I feel like I suffered so much. I played out scenarios in my head, and I imagined the worst case scenario all the time. And I was jealous, and I was possessive, and I was all these things because no one had taught me to look inwards and understand what's going on here. Like, why are you feeling like this? Why'd you get so anxious so quickly, Sam? Why did you start shaking? Like, actually, there's things we can do about that, isn't there?
Exactly, and there's psychological things you can do about it. Like thinking, for example, what's the alternative? So someone at work looks at you in a funny way, and you're thinking, oh my God, they hate me, or oh no, I'm gonna get fired, or they don't like me, or whatever it is. Well, what are the other options and out of 100, what are the chances they truly hate you and you're the worst person ever? And what are the chances that actually, they've just had a rough day themselves and they're seeing you and not sure how to interact with you? And they're probably feeling the same thing about you. Why are they, do they hate me, and whatever it is. So it's reframing our thoughts as well. That all comes as part and parcel of emotional regulation. You know, just giving ourselves that moment to look at an alternative, or look at ourselves and think, are we 100% right from this?
Yes.
Am I right that they want to screw me over in this way, or whatever it is that we're feeling at that moment in time? Or is it maybe we're 70% right? Okay, what's the other 30%? And could that actually be higher than 30%?
I like that. Yeah. What's the alternative? Or actually, what could really be going on here? So, is there a particular reason you brought that lesson up? Is there anything you are willing to share or wanting to share about growing up?
Yeah.
Maybe we could start there.
So like I said, my diagnosis is ADHD primarily. And with ADHD, it's an increasing phenomenon that a lot of people are learning about, called rejection sensitivity dysphoria. So this is a relatively new concept. It's not actually considered a medical concept. It's being recognized more and more. So rejection sensitivity dysphoria plays a big part in ADHD, and it's sort of like it's having that reaction that you mentioned, but on steroids, when it comes to people sort of reacting towards you, and you automatically again assume the worst, and it brings a painful emotion internally inside you about the way others may treat you or speak with you, or the way that they interact with you. And that's been something that's been a challenging part of my life, both growing up, being married, having children, having that automatic, that switch that you almost can't control, that just flicks on and says, God, this person, they did this on purpose, or they did this because whatever, or I am not, a great person as a result, or whatever it is, and unable to control it in that moment. As I learned both about the condition, and as I learned more about psychology and understanding the inner works of your own thoughts, of your mind, of emotional regulation, I realized, hold on a minute, actually, the next time this happens, where I need to be able to manage this in a different way. And rejection sensitivity dysphoria, just as an example of what it could be, is that obviously you've invited me to this podcast, which I'm really happy to be on. Now, this is a hypothetical example. If you turned around to me and said, Junaid, actually, you know what, I'm really sorry, I can't do it this week. Should we reschedule for a month's time? Most people will be like, all right, schedule for a month's time. It is what it is. People with rejection sensitivity dysphoria are like, I know the real reason.
They hate me.
Because
they've had second thoughts.
He doesn't like me. Yeah. He doesn't want me on. He doesn't want me on the show. He's seen somewhere else where I've done a podcast. He's seen one of my posts somewhere, and he's just doesn't like me. I don't like him now. and that's sort of the immediate reaction that people get. And obviously, it doesn't lend itself well to relationships. It doesn't lend itself well to getting through life in a positive way, and it impacts a person's emotions. So I've been on the end of having that rejection sensitivity dysphoria within myself, and learning to, it's difficult to overcome it, but learning to manage it and deal with it. And whilst RSD, or rejection sensitive dysphoria, is an ADHD specific condition, there are parallels with people who don't have ADHD who have very similar reactions to similar situations. And it's about that emotional regulation. So that's why I brought that up, because for me it was a big part of my life growing up as I got older. And it's one of the reasons where I personally have had traumas, psychological traumas I've had to overcome, that have been a result of not being able to regulate my emotions particularly well.
Oh, well, man, I can relate to that as well. What's the phrase again with the rejection?
Rejection, sensitivity, dysphoria.
Interesting. I mean, yeah, I can think of several examples growing up where I feel like that would be applicable, where I just completely overblew my reaction, because it's like, right, okay, they must be hating, they must hate me, or they must be cheating on me then because of this. They must not like me. No, they're not trustworthy anymore. Like, not just romantic relationships, but friendships, colleagues, all those things. Oh, was there one thing, you talked about how you looked at the workings of your mind and tried and unpick this, and not, by no means we're talking about curing ourselves of these internal dialogues, but is there one thing that maybe helps? Like, for example, meditation has been huge for me, I think, just in the terms of slowing down, reevaluating my relationship with thoughts as they arise. Like meditation has been massive, and recently I've been using the Waking Up app from Sam Harris, and I've found it really, really beneficial, really, really good in the last kind of month and a half that I've been doing it. But is there one thing for you that has made a difference, Junaid?
So I say that there's probably two things that made a difference. One is for me, and I think each lends into the other. One is acceptance that there's an issue there in the first place.
Right.
Because as a guy, it's almost like it's not me, it's everybody else. Yeah. It's acceptance that, hold on a minute, there might be something there that's not quite right, and accepting. So that's the key to being able to then say, okay, now I need to do something about it. So that was the first thing for me, and I think it took me a while. It took my lovely wife a lot of patience as well to be able to work with me to understand there's something going on in that respect. That's one. Then alongside acceptance is for me education. So rather than necessarily as some people have reflection and deep breathing and other things, for me with this it's a combination of learning that actually this exists, and then when an emotional situation occurs, I make sure no matter what happens, I would either not say anything, or I'll give myself space or give myself time, and if necessary, sleep on it overnight. I don't make any big decisions in life anymore now, except that I sleep on it overnight. Nothing's that time sensitive that I have to give a reaction there and then. And guess what? The following day things are often a lot brighter. Yes. And a lot more optimistic than they were in the moment. So I tend to, even when, for example, I'm in an argument or confrontation for the sake of argument, that may occur sometimes. I'll leave it and I'll give it it's 24 hours at least to then give my mind and my body and my emotions time to process.
Yes.
it. That's been the biggest thing for me.
Yeah, and just reminding of yourself, and I'm the same, and I'm sure listeners could be thinking the same as well. Remind yourself of that, like the power of a good night's sleep, but also the power of like a 30-minute walk as well. When you've had an argument or you're stuck at work, or there's some creative problem that you've got going on, you're like, I don't know what to do here. Like a 30-minute walk usually helps, doesn't it?
I mean, we're in a world where we think everything has to be done instantly. We have to reply instantly. We have to move on to the next thing instantly. And it's just giving yourself that space. You don't need to reply instantly. You don't need to react instantly. You don't need to, even if you don't understand what your emotions are at that moment in time, it's okay. Give yourself time. Even in that walk, if you don't want to think about that issue, or if you do want to think about it, it doesn't matter. Give yourself that time, and time usually is your friend in these sort of circumstances.
Should we talk about man confidence then? Before we talk about like the service and what it offers and why it's needed as well, I'd love to hear like a little short biography of why like the journey from doctor to setting up man confidence. Could we start there?
Yeah. So I became a doctor back in 2010 and a GP back in 2015. But I always and again, hindsight's a wonderful thing because now I know I have ADHD, but I was always struggling to sit in one space, in one spot. And I'm the sort of person who turns up to a workplace, and it's not just about the patient in front of me, but it's about, what else can I do to make things better? Just a little bit extra. What else can I do? Where else can I get involved? I like to give my opinion. I like to be involved more than just going to work and coming home. And I found that I struggled at times in the NHS to be able to do that, because the NHS is so under pressure. You have no time or ability to do anything other than what's in front of you, which is sad, because it's just taking a step back for a moment and rejigging things a little bit can make things a lot better. When I went abroad, I lived in Saudi Arabia for about 3 years, between 2016 and 2019. The healthcare system is less under pressure there, so I had more opportunity to get involved in changing things about, in innovation, in new technologies and so on. And I realized, hold on a minute, even as a doctor, I can take a step back from just seeing patients there and then in front of me. And actually I can be quite impactful if I do that, if I change systems around and so on. So I had those opportunities when I was abroad. When I came back to the UK, it was back to square one again. It was back to, doctor, next patient, doctor, next patient, doctor, next patient. and that's fine. I am a doctor. That is my job. I enjoy doing that. But sometimes all you need to do is change things very slightly, and it can make quite a bit of a big impact. But again, the NHS is full of bureaucracy. It's full of you can't change anything except there has to be a gigantic amount of work involved to make that change. Because the assumption is everything's unsafe to change, unless you've got evidence otherwise. So I thought I can't carry on. I don't think I can make the impact within the NHS that I would like to. So and alongside that, obviously I had my mental health journey in parallel of being emotionally dysregulated, and then finding out I have ADHD. My son has ADHD and autism, and thinking, right, I want to see what can I do that combines both my ambitions to and my internal needs to do something beyond just seeing patients in the clinic, and that's impactful.
Yes.
And impactful for me first, because you can't help anybody else unless you help yourself first. It's like that when you're on an airplane, put the oxygen mask on yourself first, and then put it on the person next to you. It's the same with mental health as well. So Man Confidence came about from, and entrepreneurship came about from trying to help myself first and fulfill my own needs and both mental health and internally, but then also being impactful towards others as well. Interestingly, with ADHD, I had a million and one different ideas over the years. In terms of back in 2012, I was like, oh, why don't I start a YouTube channel? Imagine that. Imagine I'd done that. Ali Abdal, eat your heart out, type of thing. I wouldn't, you know what I mean? Imagine if I stuck to that, but I didn't stick to that because of my ADHD. So I had a million and one ideas and things, but I was never in a place mentally to be able to see them through until the last, let's say, 4 or 5 years. And now I'm very determined to use the best of me and best of my ability to make an impact in men's mental health, and that's where it's come from.
I love it, and I can't wait to ask you more now about Man Confidence. But I think what you just said about like starting a project but then not quite following through, man, like just so much is resonating, Junaid, to be honest, because I feel the same. Like I feel like I start something and I'll do it for a good year or two, but then it's like, okay, on to the next ththing. And then I don't know if my friends and family think the same, like, oh, Sam started his, now he's started his podcast. Yeah, whatever. And it's like, there is some truth into that. I was in a band. I started a company for the well-being of school staff. That was like, did that for a couple of years, but just never quite followed through. And I think, I kind of wonder why, but I also think it can be just a bit of luck, can't it? It can be a bit of timing. And then also it can be a personality thing and a circumstance thing of like not quite finding your thing that really truly reflects. It's like the mirror is exactly angled where it reflects perfectly, whereas other little things that you might try are kind of, they're a reflection, but the angle's just a little bit off, so it's not quite there. I don't know, does that resonate with you?
It does for sure, and it's not uncommon with ADHD in particular that we get bored quite quickly as well. So it's like, well, okay, I've done this now, fine, next thing. And we're sort of constantly chasing our tails. I like to think of it, and we just can't quite reach it, and we move on to the next thing. For me, the biggest stabilizer here was my wife. She was like, no more businesses. You're gonna go through this one. You're gonna do it now and see it to the end. Whenever happens. So and that's a good thing, because I probably would have given up on this and moved on to something else a while ago. The key, I think, for me as well is making sure that it's both impactful and enjoyable. So not only do I do some entrepreneurship around mental health, I work in healthcare, technology, and innovation as well, and that's really, really interesting. So that feeds my like
curiosity,
interest in technology, as well as my naturally sort of strategic mind. I like to think ahead. I like to see how I can change, manipulate things, make it better. So that feeds that part as well. So it's not just one thing, but I'm trying to limit it now, because there are a lot of different opportunities come. I have to say no a lot now, even though I don't want to. I'm like, oh, I really want to do that. Oh, that could be the next big thing. But I'm have to say no. Whether it is the next big thing or it isn't, I have to, for my own sake, let go and focus on the one or two things maximum that I can really make an impact in. And I have to then devote my mind to it, my attention to it. And it's impossible to divide your attention amongst several different things at once and give them all, the work that they need to succeed.
Yeah. So tell us more about Man Confidence then. Like what exactly is it offering? And I think we've kind of covered the why, I guess, but maybe there is an extra why element of why is this service needed that you could explain as well.
Yeah. So I was sat in a clinic in Coventry back in 2021. And in that day, I saw about 34 patients or so during the day. At least 8 or 9 of them were guys who came in saying, "Doctor, I need a sick note." So I said, "Okay, what do you need a sick note for?" "I'm depressed, or I have anxiety, I'm off work." "Fine, okay, no problem, it happens." "And you're on medication?" "Yes, I'm on medication, doctor, and it's doing okay, but I still can't go back to work." "Okay. What about therapy? Are you on any therapy? Have you seen a therapist? Have you worked through this problem?" "Oh, I'm waiting, doctor. It's been 4 months. And I've had people come in and like, "Oh, I've been made redundant now because I've been waiting for so long to see a therapist to get the actionable insight that you need to get better." And I just thought, there's got to be a better way than this. There's got to be, I don't have all the answers to it, but there's got to be a better way than this. So the more I dug into psychotherapy services, is really, really interesting. The Office for National Statistics, they don't lie, they sort of lie. They say 96% of people get to see a therapist, to speak to a therapist within 4 weeks, so have a consultation with a therapist within 4 weeks. True. They have a initial triage consultation. Then they go on to a secondary waiting list that's as long as a piece of string. Alongside that, I've been through therapy myself, and both from personal experience and from professional experience, not all therapists are the same for each individual. Everyone needs a therapist that's tailored towards their needs or their circumstances. But the NHS says to you, "Here's your therapist. Here's your 5 sessions or 6 sessions. Good luck. And hopefully you get out of it on the other side okay." So the NHS isn't, unfortunately, for whatever reason, as it stands, isn't in a good position to be able to offer the nuanced, sort of bespoke care that people need. And we all know the men's mental health crisis. We all know about the men's mental health crisis. We all know men are 3 times more likely, or 4 times even more likely than the women, to end their own life. We know that men are more likely to present in crisis. I mean, most mental health services are set up for crisis. Whether it's charitable or otherwise, with NHS, ring the crisis number, ring the Samaritans, ring, whatever, Texas Shout, all the different calm, all for, relatively speaking, for crisis. People are, "Oh my God, I'm gonna, end my life now, or I don't want to live now. I need help." What about the steps before that? And okay, now you've got over the crisis, right? You've seen people who've got over them. What about the steps afterwards? Everything seems to be around that panic moment. But what about everything that leads up to it? What about everything that comes off afterwards? So I just thought there's got to be a better way. And when I looked around at the mental health world, I saw that, right, there's the NHS, which doesn't seem to be working or be effective enough, from all the guys that keep coming to me in clinic. Then there's the charitable sector, which really means really, really well. So you've got the men's groups that get together and talk. But I thought to myself, I've never resonated with some of them. Some people have, some people haven't, and it's fine. But how well equipped are they to, from a medical perspective, to unlock somebody who says, "You know what, I've been abused as a child, and so did such and such horrific things to me." How well is a peer, even with mental health first aider training or whatever else, equipped to unlock that in a safe way in a conversation? Because once you open up that kind of worms, then it's like, well, all the emotions, well, not all this, many of the emotions may come back, many of the dark thoughts that come with it may come back. And at the end of that half hour or 1 hour, group chat that you had, that, God forbid, where is that person in their mind? And in what state are they in their mind? Are they in a position where they can go home safely, or are they then going to walk home and do something horrific? So I just thought there has to be a better way. Now, I couldn't think of like, people have said to me, why don't you open up a charity? Or why don't you open up, something that can work around this? I've not found a way other than what it is essentially a private company, a private sector that allows me to innovate, to without being restricted by you must do it in this way, and you've got to do it in that way. So that's why I opened Man Confidence, because I thought there has to be a better way for men to have effective, safe care. And what it provides is private psychotherapy and counselling by specialist therapists that are trained in men's mental health, who are sort of handpicked and chosen by me through a rigorous interview and selection process. Myself and obviously our people who work with Man Confidence. And we've very recently integrated a CQC registered psychiatry clinic. So if you want to see a psychiatrist, a doctor, as opposed to a therapist. So a therapist does talking therapies, will talk through the traumas that you've had. A psychiatrist will give you a medical diagnosis, and if you need medication, they'll give you that, and they can guide you as well. So they'll say that you need therapy. Actually, you may not need therapy. You need medication. Actually, you need a combination of both. Actually, what you need is this. So they can guide you a lot better. If you want to see a psychiatrist, then that's available now as well at a click of a button. It's very much still a developing work in progress, but I'm getting to a point where it's better. I'm happy with where the direction is going in. It's not perfect. I want to make it cheaper. I want to make it more accessible. I want to make it easier. It's not about money. It's not about my pockets. But it's all a work in progress. But that's where we are with it at the moment.
That's awesome, and it's awesome to hear. And yeah, talking about kind of costs and things. I mean, it's part of the game, I guess, isn't it? But like you say, if you've got the goal of reducing it and making it more accessible, it's refreshing to hear and very much needed. Do you kind of get different responses to the setting up of a service that is focused on men and men's therapy? Like, why would it be that a service just needs to be offered to men? And what are men's experiences like when they go to therapy? Do they sometimes have a bad experience? That if I just imagine a man that has suffered all his life and has kept things inside, and then they do open up, but then, like you said, they've maybe got a therapist that isn't suited to them, that doesn't really understand them. I hear talk of like how men have like a unique way of thinking and the approach that they want, and like that's okay to say. Like it's all right to say that men and women are different, and sometimes maybe they're treated like broadly like a woman would be treated, presenting with the same things, when actually maybe a man wants a different approach and wants to be talked to differently. And I don't know, what are your thoughts on everything I've just blurted out there?
Yeah. Yeah, I agree. I mean, I've had 95% of the comments have been, this is much needed. This is thank you for doing this, and this is amazing, and this is really, really good, and men need something bespoke. A very small amount have said, could there be a problem with the fact that they don't have a similar service for women and so on? And what I'd say to them is that men's mental health is a independent and specific problem in and of itself, just like menopause is for women. And it's not the same analogy, don't get me wrong, it's not direct correlation, but in that sort of context, there's a specific service for women for very good reason, for certain things. And in mental health, there needs to be a specific service for men, because we know it's a real problem. We know men don't talk about it as much. We know men try to cope with it themselves. We know men end up taking their lives a lot more often and are more effective at taking their lives than women as well. So it has to be something more bespoke for men. It has to be a unique approach to it. And you're right, therapy doesn't work isn't enjoyed by every man. Some men have terrible experiences with therapy. And it's down to, as I mentioned earlier on, as you correctly pointed out, down to who the therapists are, what their training's been like, and whether you gel with that particular therapist or not. So one of the things that it's not necessarily an ad for Man Confidence necessarily, but one of the things with Man Confidence is that we offer a 15-minute chat with a therapist for free, without no commitment necessary. You don't get that on the NHS. You get, this is the person who's in front of you. Good luck, whether you gel or you don't gel. I remember once going to NHS therapy, and I had someone who's like almost like a youth worker talking to me over the phone. And I'm not, that would gel with somebody who maybe is in the early 20s, who's, perhaps, from a particular background, wherever it is. And it just wasn't right for me. But that was a waste of me waiting for God knows how long I was waiting for to have that conversation with them, and it just wasn't working. So it's about choosing the right therapist for you, and someone you're comfortable in opening up to. And not all therapists, like I said, will have that training. And I had a conversation once with somebody who said to me, I said to them, we were talking about suicide and men and so on. I said, you go to the NHS service and you want to vent to them about all the challenges you've had and so on, and you want to swear, for example, but you can't, because it's the NHS and you have to be, they're professional, you have to be professional, right? And you can't. I said to him, what's the lesser of two evils? Swearing or going to a bridge and doing something no one wants ever to happen? Yeah. Why not let men, within bounds, allow them to express themselves in the way they want to express themselves? If they want to swear at somebody who really, gave them a trauma, and said, if I met them again, I would want to swear at them and shout at them, let them say whatever they want to say. That's far less of a problem than other things that come as a result of just bottling it all up.
Yeah. And we tend to do that as men, don't we? Bottle things up. Just like, it's kind of like we think, no, I've got to sort this out. Like, no one's coming to save me. I've got to deal with this. And it is a fine balance, isn't it? Just talking about that, like there is some element of you need agency, and you need to think like this is, my stuff, and no one's going in one way. No one is going to save you. So like it's on you to sort yourself out. But sorting yourself out involves other people, and that's okay. And some of the biggest times in my life where I've like been very low, there's definitely a correlation of times where I just haven't been talking to people. I just haven't been sharing. And then I've got myself into a situation but not told anyone about it. So it's just been made 10 times worse. And then talking about men and kind of their experiences in therapy. Now, I was referred to talk therapy through my GP after I'd gone and said, earlier at the beginning, kind of midway through last year, a lot of kind of anxiety was coming up, and I was just struggling, and yeah, it was tough. So I went and spoke to my GP. They referred to me, and I had a good 5 sessions, I think, of talk therapy with this woman, and it was good in lots of ways. And I unlocked things, and I shared things that I haven't shared before, or at least not for a long time, and it was useful. But I did always think, what would this have been like if it had been a man opposite me instead, that maybe understands me a little more, understands my challenges, and understands some of these thoughts that come up and ways I've behaved in the past. Like, could they have got me on another level? Not saying that they would have been better, but just a different approach.
100%. There's a lot of guilt and shame that we carry as men for things that we've done that we in the past, that whether they're right or wrong, whatever has happened in the past, or events that have occurred, or anxieties or worries about things that we've done that very few other people would be able to understand or have gone through themselves to be able to relate to. So I agree with you. I think sometimes that gender specific aspect is really, really important, because when you've been through that sort of trauma or difficulty, then it's difficult to give an example off the top of my head. I was thinking perhaps around sort of sexual problems, sexual dysfunction, or that sort of thing. How easy is it for a guy to open up to anybody about that? But men have this problem across the board, and another man is probably going to resonate more easily with the effect of that than somebody who doesn't appreciate the challenge that's involved with it. As an example, not the best example, but as an example. So I completely agree. I think having that bespoke element where, and this is why it's important to choose your therapist that have that conversation with them, have that initial touch base with them, to say, this is what, do you think you can help me? And is this something, and get to know their personality as well. It may be that the first person you speak to isn't quite right, doesn't quite gel. It's okay. Take a look at somebody else. Where the challenges are within the NHS is that's not an option.
Yeah.
And it's not the NHS's fault. It's not even the GP's fault. The GP has 2 or 3 options in front of them. Reassure you, or give you some medicine, or send you off to a therapist. And then within that, all that wrapped up is hope for the best. Hope that with all that, something will happen and you'll be okay. And that isn't really enough, because whilst we don't like to admit it, as men, we need our hand held a little bit through that process. And that's why it's important to have that therapist who can guide you. And it sometimes requires more than 5 sessions. It requires double that to go through all the issues in depth and have them resolved.
Yeah. Oh, an important reminder. It'd be like kind of saying, I don't know, trying one version of meditation and then not getting on with it and thinking, well, meditation's just not for me then. And it's like, well, exactly. No, actually maybe that one type didn't suit you, but why don't you try this breath work, mindfulness, whatever. Interesting. And like I said, an important reminder. What about then men that have decided to, they think, right, I want to go to therapy. I think this is needed. I'm struggling. But then,
I think it's just cut off.
Yeah, are you still there?
Oh, there, I'm here now. Yep, here we go.
We're back. Hopefully we're back and that hasn't cut off.
No.
Yeah, so the men that are, they've decided to go to therapy, but maybe they are feeling nervous, anxious about taking that first step. And I'm pretty sure that you did a post about this quite recently over on LinkedIn. So what's your advice around that?
It's normal to feel that way. It's completely normal to feel that way. There's nothing wrong with feeling that way. You're talking to someone who is essentially a stranger to you, and you've got things that are quite deep and personal to you that you're thinking you need to talk about. It's difficult, and the session may be uncomfortable, feel uncomfortable for you, and that's normal. And having anxiety about going into therapy is completely normal. But unless you try it and give it a go, you won't know. And you have to ask yourself the question: do I want to continue feeling the way I am? And that's acceptable to me. If it is, you don't mind that, and you can live and function in life perfectly well with the way you are feeling, and you're able to manage it, fair enough. But if you're thinking, I can't continue this type of way, it has to change, it's affecting me, my day-to-day life, perhaps my relationship with others, it might be affecting my sleep or my weight gain or my diet or whatever it is, you have to think of the pros and cons. And there is some uncomfortableness in the beginning with therapy, but it very quickly, in my experience at least, transforms into a very positive experience. And remember, you're dealing with trained professionals who deal with clients every single day, deal with people every single day who have very troubling, difficult, extremely challenging circumstances. And they know how to leave you at the end of the session feeling better than where you were at the beginning. And that's the common sort of part of their training, to make sure that at the end of it, you're feeling okay. And with enough tools there to be able to survive comfortably until the next session. So it is anxiety provoking at times. It can feel scary, but the ultimate choice is down to you. And there are ways you can make it, feel easier for yourself as well. By, if you wanted to, if it is good for you, if you wanted to have somebody else there with you, or jot down the points that on paper, get it out of your head on paper, the points that you want to discuss, and prioritize it. What's the one that's bugging you the most, and focus on that one. Try to deal with the big issues first, and things will improve. Like sessions will, from one session to the other, you'll notice a gradual improvement. But the beginning is the hardest, and very quickly I promise you, with the right therapist, very quickly, it gets easier.
That's so good. Such good points. I didn't even think about the fact that, of course, you could take someone along to the session if you wanted. That's I guess your right, isn't it? Your prerogative if you want someone there as well. And the getting the things down on paper, I think that's really useful in so many aspects of life, whether you're going into a difficult conversation, meeting or whatever, or into a session with a therapist, like have it written out so you're not kind of relying on your mental capacity, because, you know, we can start to feel stressed, can't we, and anxious, and then we don't quite think as clearly, and then we leave and go, oh, I forgot to mention this. Excuse me. The other thing I thought, what was I about to say? What was I about to say? It's completely gone, so don't worry about that. Maybe it'll...
I wanted to give a quick example.
Yeah, please.
I had a therapy session where there was something I wanted to talk about that happened. I don't want to go into too many details about it, but it made me a little bit emotional during the therapy session. But I didn't actually, just like I am now, I didn't actually mention the thing that, you know, by name with the therapist. And because when I do mention those things, it brings on some emotions. It makes me feel quite sad, I suppose, in a way. The therapist who I spoke with was incredible, and they actually got me to speak about the actual issue and break it down. And when I spoke to them about it, they actually said to me that in my particular circumstance, I was being quite harsh on myself, and actually it was very natural to think of the way that I did at the time, and to react in the way that I did, and to feel the way I am feeling now. And that many other people would feel exactly the same way, and even he himself would feel that way as well. So what was very, very anxiety provoking, I didn't even want to say the name of the thing at the time, with the therapist, was something that I was able to open up and talk about in depth. And at the end of it, it was like a massive burden lifted off my shoulders. It's like an exhale. And like, oh, thank God somebody else knows about this and understands this other than myself, and it's not just whirring around in my head again and again.
And you've reminded me what I was going to say, and that is that we might feel like we need to go and talk to someone about a problem and think, I'm the only person that's going to have had this happen to me. I'm the only person in the world that's going to have done this thing that I've got so much shame around. So I can't tell someone because they will be shocked. And like, it's just not true, is it? Like, people have heard it all, therapists have heard it all, doctors have heard it all, and then some. And so I think that's something that we struggle with. We think, oh, we're the only one that's ever going to go through this. We're the only one that behaved like that. We're the only one that made that mistake. So this is so shameful and I can't admit it to anyone. And then you do tell someone and they're like, yeah, that's like other people have talked to me about this. Other people have come to me with this same problem. It's okay. And then, like you said, the release of, I'm not the only one.
And also, from my angle, from very personal angle, so the more ethnic angle and religious-centric angle as well, is that, you know, obviously there's often stigma attached. There's sin involved, or I've sinned, or I've done X, Y, Z, and therefore, you know, I'm not worthy, and that self-worth, and you know, it comes into question as well. And the reality is that therapists understand this. Yeah. But it's important about finding the right therapist who has a similar background to an extent to you, whether it's cultural, or at least understand your culture, even if they're not from the same background, understands your background well, and acknowledges that something that's relatively minor in other people's eyes are actually quite big in your eyes, and something that are quite big in your eyes actually quite minor in the eyes of other people, and be able to relate that to you. And understand that personal aspect of your trauma or your difficulty that you're going through.
Mm-hmm. Now, aside from therapy, is there any kind of other approaches to life that maybe men might take that kind of, this is a bit more of a broader question, I guess, but like what else can men do to look after themselves, stay happy, healthy, improve relationships, that kind of thing?
This is probably the most common answer in the world, but exercise, and but not just exercise. exercise you enjoy. And that there's a big difference between exercise and exercise you enjoy, because some people are like, right, I need to go to the gym because the gym will improve my mental health. Some people are like, I need to start running because everyone runs and whatever, and I need to start running, and that's going to improve my mental health. It has to be something that you enjoy and that you can be consistent with. But it's effectively proven, scientifically proven that regular exercise, improves your mental health. And for me personally, I went to Europe last year. I went on a hike around Europe, not around Europe, but with some guys around Germany, parts of France and Switzerland. And I didn't realize I liked walking. I didn't realize I liked hiking until that point. I didn't realize I like nature. But that's something I've integrated into my life. So I do a lot of walking now, and I've tried to find local walking routes, and that's exercise that I enjoy. Now, I've started playing football again because I've lost a little bit of weight. So I started playing football again, and that's something I enjoy. Not everyone enjoys football. It's okay. And even if you can't do something intense, do something that gets you out of the house, that gives you a little bit of a sweat. I coach my son's under-9s football team on a Sunday. Now, they're kids, it's under-9s, but I still have to have a little bit of run around with them, walking here to and from, a bit of movement involved. It's exercise, it's enjoyable. I like it. Combine what you enjoy, have an exercise that you enjoy, that you're willing to do every day. Don't just follow the fashionable trend of joining the gym, taking some selfies and sticking them on Instagram.
Why'd you look at me when you said that?
If it works for you, it works for you. If it's something that doesn't work for you, you don't need to follow the trend. You follow something that you enjoy. As long as you enjoy it and it gets you physically active, it'll make a huge world of difference to your mental health.
Oh, absolutely. 100%. And maybe I'll join you for a local walk, because we're not actually that far away from each other, are we? Which we realised at the start of this.
More than welcome. Honestly, we've got some wonderful routes. Honestly, you're more than welcome.
That would be awesome. That would be awesome. We'll make it happen. Junaid, I've really, really enjoyed speaking to you. I think this has been impactful. I think it's been personal, open, honest, the kind of conversation that I want this podcast to be about. I'm just really grateful for you giving up a bit of your time this morning to come and talk to us about this topic.
No, I'm grateful to be here. To be honest, I'm very thankful to you. I think it's really, really important these days, and I hope anybody who's listening, if you've related even a little bit to some of this and you find it useful, I'm glad. If you're able to let us know, that's that helps as well. That feedback helps. Yeah. But even if you don't want to let us know, I'm glad and there's always support available. And just look and reach out and make yourself a priority. You are important. Other people are important in life, but you can only help other people once you help yourself. First.
Well, on that topic, why don't we, before I jump to the last two questions that I'm going to wrap up with, while we're here, why don't you tell us where people can connect with you and find out more about your work and Man Confidence as well?
Yeah. So I live on LinkedIn. So LinkedIn, if you put LinkedIn Dr. Junaid Hussain, you'll find me there. Please do connect. We have Man Confidence accounts on Instagram, so Man Confidence HQ. And on Facebook, Man Confidence UK. I don't know why the tags are different, but they are, just to confuse everybody. but yeah, it's Please do connect with me or follow the accounts, and I'm willing to have a chat with anybody who wants to know more, who needs support and so on. But please do tag. I'm more than happy to have a chat with you and to get to know you more as well.
Awesome. So the last two questions. We asked one of these three questions at the start, so let's do the last two. The first one is, what's one habit you've maybe added to your life, maybe taken away, that's helping you feel happier and healthier?
For me, saying no. So in a polite way, but saying no. I think taking with ADHD, we take on too much. We want to do several things at once, and we end up doing nothing at once. So it's a matter of people come with opportunities. Say, can we do this together? Can we do that together? I try now to try and focus on the one or two things that I can do, and not to take on too many things. So it's a strange. It's not really a habit necessarily, but it's a sort of habit. If people are coming to me with something that's a big project that I know I can't do, give myself that time to reflect before I say no. As you mentioned at the beginning of the podcast, give yourself a moment to think about it and reflect. And if I honestly can't do it, I have an honest conversation with myself. And if I need to, I run it by my wife as well, who's like an unbiased second opinion. And then I say no. I say, I'm really sorry. It's something I can't get involved in. It's too much for me at this moment in time. But maybe I can direct to somebody else who might be able to help you.
Yeah, I feel like we need to give like more shout outs to your wife. She seems like a real rock to you. You can see how much how much she means to you, and it's beautiful, man.
Yeah, she made a big difference in me understanding my mental health. Yeah, for sure.
Oh, I love it. Last question: if you could give everyone in the world one book, which book would you give them?
So I had a big think about this question. I'd say Atomic Habits by James Clear. Again, it's simple, small changes that make a big difference. We tend to want to, when people want to lose weight, I want to lose 10 kilos by tomorrow. I want to be a millionaire by next week. And in reality is it never happens, or extremely rare that happens. It takes slow changes, small changes, every day, every other day, that accumulate an effect. As long as you're consistent with it. And that's why I really like the book.
It's good. There's a reason I think it's been in the bestsellers list for, I think, months or years or something like that, hasn't it? Like it just doesn't shift from the top 5 books on Amazon or something like that. It's crazy. Yeah.
No, it's a really good book. So I do recommend.
Great shout. Right. I think that's everything. Junaid, thank you so much for your time this morning. I'm really glad we connected over on LinkedIn. I'm hopeful that we're going to stay in touch and maybe organise that walk as well.
Yeah, definitely up for the walk. And thank you so much, honestly. Honestly, really appreciate it.
Nice one. Thank you for tuning in. I really hope you found my conversation with Junaid insightful. If you did enjoy the episode, please share it with friends, family, and colleagues who you think would find it helpful too. And you can support the podcast by following and rating the show on whichever app you're listening on. Thank you again, and I look forward to bringing you another episode soon.